You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
All right. What's up, Coaches Nation? Excited to see you again this week. This is Dr. Sherry Flewellen with our co-host Faisal Ansan, and we have an amazing guest for you today, Jens Nielson. So his background is actually in real estate as an investor, although he's got a pretty substantial background even before that. But right before he jumped into the coaching space, he has been working in real estate as a consultant. And so he's going to share with you some information about his journey and how he's harnessed his experience and his influence as a consultant into his coaching practice. Because, you know, we all have networks, we all have skill sets, we all have experiences, and I think most of us have prior lives, you know, quote unquote lives, prior, you know, careers and stuff like that. And so it's like, how do you make use of that as you transition into a coach? So we're going to unpack that today with Jens. I'm super excited to hear about this. And so you guys won't want to miss this. Before we jump into all of that, we got a couple things on our agenda. Our wins. We always talk about wins at the beginning of our podcast because it is important, in my opinion, our opinion, to start off conversations with excitement and enthusiasm and talk about the things that are going well. So because you are an honored guest today, Jens, what are some wins that you've had this week in whatever domain of life?
Well, thanks, Sharon. I'm super excited about this opportunity today. So, yeah, a recent win, I think that goes out to one of my clients that I've been working with for quite some time in the real estate space that started out investing in small properties, and they finally, this was actually last Friday, so I guess that still counts for this week because we're on Wednesday today. They closed their first larger deal, their first syndication deal, and they're super excited. And they couldn't believe they had finally gotten to that level, being able to do something, and just kind of coaching them through that process and helping them seeing the possibility and getting the confidence to go out and do something bigger than they had ever tried before. So I think that's the one win I would like to celebrate this week.
That's awesome. Good for you, Jens. That must feel really good.
Absolutely. Faisal, you're up next.
Yeah, my win. I'm settling into my new office. I changed offices. It is a bit chillier up here, but it feels good. It's actually much bigger, and I have like a space away from everybody upstairs. So it feels more secluded. The kids are not always running towards my door. So that feels good. That's a win.
And I didn't know you played guitar. I see a little neck sticking out on the side.
So that's for me to be motivated. I'm going to look at that until I play it because I've been wanting to do this. I did start a while back, but then I stopped it. So I want to actually get somebody to help me move that forward because I've been wanting to do that for a while. So I want to keep that there until I get it done.
Is this something you want to make a commitment around, Faisal?
Oh my God, I'm around coaches. I am this month.
That's awesome. So for me, I would say one of my wins actually was another coaching call I had this week. And it was with another coach through the Coaching Mastery community. So we do beta coaching, and so we coach each other. And I think I find so much value in coaching a coach because I don't know, I feel like there's a little bit of stress and anxiety, not like the overwhelming bad kind, but the kind that's enough to where it's like you want to be on your A game. And so she had given me feedback that a couple of questions I asked her were really powerful and really made a shift in her. And so that felt good because, it feels good when a regular client says that, definitely. But when I'm working with somebody that is, has been doing coaching longer than me and I get some good feedback, that just, I don't know, that just boosted me and helped me kind of have a great rest of the day. So that would be my win.
That's great. Yeah. I just love that. That does feel good.
Now, speaking of Coaching Mastery Community, they are the sponsor for our podcast. It's So Faisal, can you unpack a little bit what the Coaching Mastery community is for the coaches that are listening?
Yeah, definitely. And we're all actually members of Coaching Mastery community here. And what we do in Coaching Mastery is to support coaches to develop their skill sets and help them go towards building their business and moving it forward so they can build a profitable, sustainable business, but also coach who actually creates an impact in the world and their clients and the people that they're serving. So that is the mission for Coaching Mastery community.
Awesome. All right, so Jens, here's the big opening question for you. How often do people call you Jens?
That's funny. Yeah, after being in the US for 25 years, it still happens a lot.
I might have done that the first time I talked to him.
Totally guilty of it. Fortunately, when I first said your name, it was not to you, so somebody corrected me.
It happens, yes.
Yeah. So Jens, how did you get into the coaching space? I mean, you've got quite a colorful, not in a bad way, but quite a colorful and accomplished background. So kind of walk us through that in whatever way makes sense for you.
Yeah, I started my career as an telecommunication in IT, which I did for 25, 27 years or something like that. So that's obviously not the most logical progression into coaching. I always liked to teach. I always had a passion for teaching people. I felt like once I learned something, if I could pass that on and teach somebody the skills that I had learned, there's some satisfaction in that. A couple of reasons, right? They would enhance their skills, and I also would have to really know that topic in order to convey that in a way to whomever was listening. So I did teach a little bit in college and stuff and so forth. But I realized, so then when I transitioned I got into real estate. I know this is not a real estate podcast, but at some point I realized I wanted to change my career about 5 or 6 years ago. And I got into real estate investing. We invest in apartment complexes. I got into that. And at that time, I had this desire as I was learning, I felt like I wanted to start sharing what I was learning to deepen my own knowledge and to, pass it on to somebody else. So I kept kind of bugging I was part of a kind of a coaching mentorship group myself as a client. I kept bugging the guy who was running. I said, hey, can I start, training? They called it coaching. I realized later on it wasn't coaching. It was more like consulting and training. Can I become a trainer for you? What do I need to do? Right. It's like, well, once you do your first deal, you can do it. It's like, cool. So I did a deal. It's like, can I do it now? Right. So I eventually convinced him or influenced him or persuaded him to let me do the coaching, which was, again, it wasn't coaching. It was really just training and a little bit of accountability in there, but not really coaching as we understand coaching. So I did that for a couple of years, and I learned, as I was doing it, I started picking up a few kind of coaching tricks or tips here and there, and then started, working with Faisal as my coach. I was like, man, this is so much more powerful. The coaching is so much more powerful than the training and the consulting, because I can tell somebody what to do all day long, but if they don't truly believe it in their hearts that they can, or their minds, or that they can actually accomplish it, they may not take that necessary action. And it became very repetitive in the sense like, okay, you said you were going to do X last time we spoke, you haven't done it. What's going on? Oh, well, let's put it on the list to do it next time. And it actually became frustrating for me because if people weren't taking action, it was just like I felt inadequate in my ability to help people move forward. So as I started, understanding what coaching really was, I was like, wait, this is really the way we push people or make them start making those changes in their business, in their personal life, in their relationships, in all these different areas. So as I got my own coaching and started making those shifts myself, I was like, I need to figure out how to become a coach myself, and decided to go down that route of getting certified and really focusing on that. So all the clients I'm working with now, I transitioned them from real estate consulting training to coaching. And it has just been amazing how it has shifted people, just because they take action, they have better relationships, they do think they can actually make this happen versus technical approach to it. So that's how I that's very quickly how I went into how I became a coach, I guess.
That's awesome. I think that idea of telling people what to do and then it's like you're hitting your head against a brick wall because nothing's changing. That happens in so many areas of life and so many professions. So for a period of time, for about, I think it was about 4 or 5 years, as a psychologist, I was working with a family practice residency, and where I was training the physicians on bedside manner, how to recognize mental health, how to do different things. And one of the things I noticed, which, if you've ever gone to the doctor before, and who hasn't, the doctor's like, I'm giving you a prescription for this, and they're telling us what to do. But so often the patients or the clients aren't bought into that actually is what they're going to do. And so then, I feel like that's part of what's wrong with our medical community is everybody's telling people what to do, but nobody's actually bought into the solution. So introducing some of those kind of coaching skills, that abilities to get people to get excited about a solution and to kind of co-create that is a game changer, I think, and no matter what field somebody's in. So I love how you recognize that and you shifted.
I love Jens's journey. And it's interesting how he put it that, he was a consultant for these real estate clients, and Jens and I have been collaborating on other things too. And when you actually really look at these quote unquote coaching programs for real estate investors, there is a part for consultants where they can help them with technical knowledge around, okay, this is what you need to do to move forward. But much of what most people need is actually coaching, because their life is not just about the professional life. They're stuck in so many different ways in their own thoughts and their own emotions and their relationships and the way they look at their purpose and vision and all that stuff, that they need a more all-encompassing program to help them kind of make sense of their reality. And when you look at it, and Jens and I have similar clients, in fact, some of our clients overlap, watching their growth, that much of, even when they're going, so a lot of my clients are their real estate investors who are transitioning from their full-time job into full-time real estate investment. It's a lot of it is an identity shift that they're creating. And I know Jens has gone through that journey of identity shift into becoming that entrepreneur, that investor. And that requires quite a bit of digging deeper. That requires quite a bit of restructuring thought patterns, completely changing your identity, vision, so many things. And I know it's been for Jens over and over, what a couple of things that I've really loved about how he approaches. One, that I think the thing that got him into real estate, and I think he will confirm that, is that he loved working with people. He realized that we wanted to be around the right people. And then when he started going towards coaching, he realized, holy shoot, this is a much more interesting and exciting way of working with people than, just consulting for this. Obviously consulting has its own role, and that's something that we need. So maybe Jens, you can unpack that. Like, how did you, and this also goes towards the passion pieces. How did you discover that you wanted to go towards real estate? And then how did that connect with coaching? And how are you finding this to be more exciting in a sense?
Yeah, I think real estate really early on, it was really to have more freedom and ability to impact my financial future in ways that I couldn't see through my W-2 job. I was an IT person, great income, comfortable life, but I couldn't really see a way out of it except working for another 20 plus years, right? Whatever it is to retirement age. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And I'd had that nagging feeling for years, but I didn't really know what the exit was going to be or the transition. Everything else just looked like a new job, becoming a consultant or whatever. And then I discovered real estate. I was like, wait a minute, this is the opportunity. And a client said this yesterday, there's not a linear connection between your input and the rewards, quote unquote, that you get. Most jobs, there's a linear, like you work an hour, you get X number of dollars. You work 2 hours, you get twice as much. Real estate is exponential if you do it right. So it's like, I started to see a glimpse of that. You put a lot of work and effort in, but over time that accelerates and expands much quicker. I know that Sherry, you do it yourself as well. So you're seeing the same thing. So I started seeing that. So initially, there really was a way, the real estate was really a way for me to start seeing that new direction, that new path. I didn't really look at it as initially as what it has evolved to. Like, I'll do it for 10 years and then I can retire or whatever. Then I started getting into it. And initially I had a lot of limiting beliefs around, I could do it myself. I don't need partners and all that. And I quickly realized that wasn't going to get me anywhere very quickly. So that's where the partnership started coming in. And if anybody asks me now what I really love about real estate, it's the fact that I get to work with these cool people that have similar aspirations for growing their business, for creating something, right? And it's so different than being, having been in the corporate world for so many years. Your coworker's motivation for being there is going to be not necessarily the same as yours, or their motivation may be very low. Whereas in the entrepreneurial world, we know that if we don't do this work, nothing is going to happen, right? The paycheck is not going to just show up for us just sitting around, right? So there's a motivation, there is an aspiration to do more every day, right?
Yeah.
And that's really why I felt I really got connected with the real estate. But then I also felt like, okay, but real estate is very technical. It's very like, well, you do these things and you do the deals and all that. I felt like, okay, how can I really connect with, how can I pay this forward? How can I help other people grow and reach some of those levels that I'm aspiring to by challenging them, and they also challenging me, because if the clients are doing things I wasn't even thinking about, I was like, why? How did they discover that, and how can I learn from them, right? So it goes kind of two ways, So I feel like if I can, it's great to do a deal and impact tenants' lives and investors and partners, but that takes a lot of work. It's a lot of effort to put a deal together, and you do a few a year. Every time you do a coaching call, you have the opportunity to change somebody's life, even just a small way, but just a little shift, a little change, and you can do that over and over every week. So there is a much more direct feedback and input from the coaching. And then the fact I get to work with real estate investors serves a double purpose, that I get surrounded by people that are doing things, and then that grows my network and grows the people that I'm connected with and the deals I get access to and everything, right? So I think that was a long-winded answer, but I think that kind of explains where I'm coming from and why that all makes sense to me.
One thing I noticed that you said like 15 minutes ago, which stuck out in my brain, so I kind of want to wrap back to that, is you actually wanted to consult in real estate before you actually did your first deal. Like, where did that mindset and that confidence come from?
I'd done a few smaller deals myself. I'd done a few, solo deals and stuff. So I wasn't a complete newbie, but I hadn't done like the bigger, what we call syndications, where we take, a $10 or $20 million deal and put that together. I hadn't gone there yet.
Okay.
Where did the confidence come from? I felt like it was a challenge to me that if I were to grow to that next level, I needed a challenge that I could challenge myself every day. Every call with that client, right? I had to show up and I had to, act as if almost like, hey, I am going to do this. You're going to do this. Together, we're going to do it. So I started creating that push or the pull or whatever towards that. If I was just talking about, oh, let's do these deals, and I wasn't taking action, that would I would not be in congruence with who I wanted to be. So I think it came from that. It really came from, here was a way to really challenge myself in ways that I couldn't imagine at that time.
So in the high performance world, that's just for those listening, that's called necessity. And in order to be, truly successful, and successful is whatever you define it as, but there needs to be that necessity, either internal, external. Internal is the most powerful. So I love Jens, how you created that internal necessity by putting yourself in the position to where you needed to continue to move yourself forward and learn yourself, so that you wouldn't feel like you're, having a double standard of like, coaching somebody to amazing things in real estate while you're not doing amazing things.
Yeah,
that's excellent. And I totally cut you off. I saw you had something else amazing to.
Yeah, just one thing as shared, thank you. One of the things as Jens shared that I've noticed, and I really respect and love that about Jens, is that he tends to want to challenge himself towards mastery. And even in the coaching world, he's challenging himself to get better and better in that world. And so maybe you can touch on how that has supported you, because I think you've carried that with you in IT and real estate and now in coaching. What is the significance of that challenging yourself towards that mastery level, and how are you bringing that more and more into coaching?
Where did that come from? Yeah, that's a good question. It's just a strive for excellence that I think, maybe came from my dad, who was always like tinkering with stuff and improving it and making stuff better. And I think I carried that along. So I saw it in my cycling, I saw it in my IT career. And then as I went into, the real estate investing, I like to optimize these deals that we have, right? Because focus on what you have, improving that versus trying to go and do the next thing and letting stuff kind of falter behind you. So I pushed that. And then also with the coaching again, right? I can only take, one of the things that you and I have talked about, Faisal, you can only take your client as far as you've gone yourself. And I didn't want to hit that wall. I was like, well, sorry, I can't help you anymore. I'm out. If I can stay up or a little bit ahead of where my clients are going, that's going to continue to help them move forward, right? So I just feel like, there is that opportunity to really see how far we can go and when do we start hitting that limit of our own capability. So that's pretty much what I've tried to practice. So I only do a few things and I try to do them well versus scattering myself across a spectrum.
I think that's such a powerful lesson for all of us, because it's easy to fall into, let me do a bunch of different things, whether it's in business or in anything else that we do. Like we have this idea of diversify everything, which there is some common sense to that. But if you're not doing something well, if something that you're doing, you're not improving that, and you move on to the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing, like you're just scattered between different things that you can't do very well in, and things break down over time. One of the things I learned, and just like you, that I love, is that if I'm going to go into this field, it's not about being better than others. It's about really seeing how far we can go, one, to serve people, but coaching is a field I feel like it's more an experience of growing yourself. So for me, this was actually initially for me, how it started was, this was the next level of growth for me, is gain a lot from my sessions as I'm working with my clients. In fact, I joke around about this. If my clients knew how much I grow out of this, they might stop paying me. and coaches know this, that they really powerfully grow through this experience of coaching, because it's not like you're the type of expert, I'm teaching you this thing. It's like you're going on this adventure together. You don't know where you're going to go if you're going deep enough with this. Mm-hmm. There are times where I've come out of a session and I'm thinking about, my clients had these insights, and I'm sitting there for a week. I'm like, holy shoot, I never thought of that myself. And other times I've been like, it was an emotional experience, but it affected me to a greater degree. And I had to unravel that. Well, why did it affect me? Mm-hmm. And that's to me, like this journey for coaching is a two-way street in a sense. So I'm curious, for you, Jens, how do you see your coaching journey, that mastery towards that coaching journey, and how do you connect it with the rest of the things that you're doing, which is really cool, all the stuff that you're doing?
The coaching journey, as I talked about, it's about improving my skills in that to helping my clients. But also I'm quote unquote selective around the people that I work with. They're all in the real estate space one way or another, because I feel attracted to that. And I think also, they feel attracted to me because of what I've been doing in that space. Right. But I also feel like people that are ready to even consider investing in real estate and so forth, they are probably pretty motivated to take action. I'd like to work with people that are ready to take action and want to move forward and create something amazing, right? So I really have seen the connection being pretty amazing between coaching people, helping them, and then also them potentially partnering with them. So there's been partnerships created through my coaching, and them starting to find these deals, and they may need me to come in and help them getting across the finish line and so forth. So that's a continuous thing that I really have worked on, and I want to actually, I'm working on taking that to the next level, where we're going to we're planning a kind of a mastermind event starting next year where we're going to get people together to create those connections around the team you build, around seeing how you can achieve much more through the people that you surround yourself with, how you can pay it forward, if you're going to call it a pay it forward mastermind event, how, you know, more experienced people can pay it forward to newer investors to help them take action, and then instill that value in them that, okay, we helped you, now it's your turn to help the next generation that comes up behind you to get them across the, you know, getting their first deals and so forth. So that paying forward thing, so there can be an abundance and a continuous progress forward that doesn't stop with what we as individuals can do. So that's really kind of how I see this progressing over the next few years.
I love that.
That is awesome.
I've noticed that as this pay it forward, let's collaborate, everybody can be a winner, not in the like everybody is a winner, like there's only one first place. But everybody can support each other. I've noticed that mindset just in general. It's interesting, and maybe it's just where I live and kind of what I see around here, but it seems like there's becoming a greater divide between those that really subscribe to that philosophy that I can help you and that's not going to take away from me. You know, that abundance mindset is what it's often labeled, from a lot of folks at least in around where I live and some of the people that I interact with, where it's very much that scarcity mindset of like, I'm going to protect and keep my knowledge all close to me because I don't want anybody to steal it and screw me over or whatever. I've just noticed that those two camps seem to be getting further and further apart. I don't know if you guys have noticed something similar, but it's interesting. It's a struggle that I have when I've just noticed when I'm interacting with people. I want to bring people from over to here, and that's hard.
I feel like that's the difference between, and I think in every generation that's there, it's becoming more and more dominant now with the way things are accelerated. And I think the new model, interestingly, and it's connected more with the old model before all these ideas came in, is that for us to move forward, whether in business or in any other setting, we need to work with people. Mm-hmm. Like that business model of constantly competing with people and not interacting with people, not sharing information, connections, resources, that doesn't work in a world where information is completely abundant. I was listening to an interview with Elon Musk. It was so interesting. Like you could see these two mindsets within the interview. The interviewer had the old mindset. Elon Musk doesn't. So he's literally asking him in that way. So aren't you concerned about these car companies coming in and as a competition? And he will say that. He's like, well, maybe Apple is a competition, but not Google, because they don't do that. But he's like, I want these people to come into the picture because I want people to bring in more electric cars. And in fact, he's like, we've made patents available to everybody to like take advantage of. And Google is doing that. They're making it available. Why are they doing this stuff? Because we're starting to, I feel like at a collective level, but also, and we're starting to realize that we need to start working together. Like we don't live in a world where somebody has this advantage of information in a corner. If you really wanted to, you can pretty much find anything for free online. Yeah. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You can go through a university program for free. You can go find anybody who's selling anything, a course, you can find it. You might have to put it together yourself from different sources, but you can find it. You can go and search people that'll help you with almost anything. So why this competition mentality in the sense that I'm against you? That I feel like that's an older mentality that's kind of dying out. It's just not working in this world because it requires people to bring their knowledge and perspective together and combine it with other people because the systems are getting more complex. And I know Jens has worked with systems, whether in real estate or in his IT. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, and I think as you were talking about how all the information is available out there, right? It truly is, and you can learn so much. I think, I think the biggest challenge is putting it together and actually making it work, right? Putting the knowledge together and taking action on it and make some sort of product or whatever it is out of it is the biggest challenge, right? I think that's where we come in as coaches, is trying to get all these disparate thoughts together and said, okay, is that truly the direction you want to head in? Okay, cool, let's work on that versus, there's a million different ways we could go. So getting the focus and the attention on there. But then coming back to that thing about, collaboration and sharing and everything, and I had a scarcity mindset early on. It's like, if that zero-sum game, like if I won, they lost and vice versa. And I took some of that into the real estate early on. There was that sense of competition, but I realized I cannot do anything by myself, or very, very little, and it would take me forever to get anywhere. So I would rather think about how the pie is getting bigger and we all can get a slice of the pie versus there's a fixed size pie, right? So just, the early deals I did with partners, I got a very, very, very small piece of it, but it got me into the game. I was like, cool, now I'm learning. Now I'm seeing what it means, this looks like from the quote unquote inside, how they are putting these larger deals together. I didn't really care, how small that slice was. But then as I increase my value and I start to understand it, how this is done, I was able, the pie still increased because we were able to do more deals. And then also, my relative size of it also grew because my value grew in that space, right? So I think really knowledge is there, putting the knowledge together in a way that creates value, that creates a positive outcome for people. I think that's what we need to focus on these days, right? So Elon Musk, a lot of people could start electric car company. Very few people puts the knowledge together to actually do it, right? The same thing in real estate. A lot of people could put a deal together. Very few people are able to assemble the right team and take the necessary action to actually make it happen. Yeah, and we sometimes lose out on deals to somebody that is more aggressive, want to pay more for it. It's like, okay, well, there's probably another deal around the corner, which we've seen this year. There certainly is, right? So I just feel like, and sometimes the deals you don't do are the best ones because something better comes up behind it, right? So I just feel like having that trust that if you put the effort into it, the outcome, you're going to get the outcome that you're looking for eventually.
Yeah, and I love this, and that's one of the things that, and I want to go a little bit into how Jens has leveraged this his community to kind of gain clients in the process, because it all connects with, it doesn't matter if it's real estate, because I've seen the real estate world, how people collaborate in there, or any other area, or coaching. I think it's all the same. I think it comes down to how you view your world. And even as I'm building my own community, initially my thought was, well, I'm going to build it to a point, and then bring in other coaches. I still wanted other coaches and trainers to come into my community, but it was more like, oh, I'll be paying them to do this. But at some point I was like, why am I doing this? Is this like a set process? But then the more I noticed, especially as I started noticing, I was sharing with Jens, like, we're sharing clients. And then I started it with my other, one of my clients. She was sending me a bunch of clients, and she was in the process of becoming a coach. I'm like, well, what if I collaborated with her? Why can't we work together to build this community where we're serving people? And again, the analogy goes back to that pie. If we can make the pie big enough, everybody has a good relative size in there in terms of the resource piece. But I also look at the other side of it, the opportunity for growth and learning. One of the things that Dr. Sherry, as part of the coaching mastery community, just building that, working with amazing leaders, trying to understand how to move something forward, that in itself is priceless to me. Yes, we need resources, we need the money to move the message forward and all that stuff, but their background stuff, I wouldn't have the kind of skill sets that I have without the communities I'm a part of, without the people that I've been collaborating with. I wouldn't have the confidence that I have. I wouldn't have the ability to think about things in so many different ways had I not collaborated with different people. And so for me, it's incredibly exciting to bring in more and more coaches and trainers and influencers into the fold so we can work together to move it forward, versus, hey, I'm going to build this thing on my own and screw the rest. They can figure out their own way. And it also goes back. So for me, it was when I was in the beginning stages of the coaching, like I was looking for stuff like that, but there were very, very few coaches who were even willing to talk to you about these things. Like if they were a little bit ahead, they will say one or two things, oh, this will help you. But they were very like distant in a sense that, oh, I'm in a different place than you are. Versus, hey, how can we work together? Find a way. Like that would have been a game changer for me had I seen how more experienced coaches do certain things. And I wasn't expecting them to do anything for free or anything, but there was not that mindset to, hey, let's see, I was there too. Let's see if we can help these coaches move up together. And it goes back to what Jens was talking about, pay it forward. So I also want to transition. I wanted to, since you've been part of the real estate world and now you're in the coaching world, how have you leveraged getting consistent flow of clients? And I know you might have a few too many clients, like as you're saying that you're working with real estate investors, how have you managed to attract these clients, but also you've kind of created these packages that combine with your consultant work, which is, I think, great. How have you managed to do that on a consistent basis?
Yeah, I don't even have a coaching website, so.
He doesn't. That's what's amazing.
Yeah, and I know that people struggle with, getting clients and everything else. I think the way I did it very grassrooty, that's the word here. I would connect with people on various real estate forums, various events and everything else. And I would just connect with people through, there's, a bunch of different websites out there you can connect. And I would say, hey, sounds cool. Why don't we get on a call, right? Why don't we talk? So I had various reasons for that. I wanted to see, hey, maybe this person can become a partner, maybe an investor. And then as I started transitioning into the coaching, maybe they can become a coaching client, right? And as my quote unquote credibility in the real estate started growing through doing more deals and being on a lot of different podcasts and everything else, I was able to kind of get my message out there, and that connected with people and said, well, I've actually done it, right? Because people want to, they want to get into real estate and they want to find somebody that they can connect with who has actually done it, that's not just selling, a course, and they may not even have the experience. I came from an authentic place of having done it, and I just connected with people one-on-one through, let's get on a call. I've had probably hundreds of kind of quote unquote free calls where I would just say, what's going on? How can I help you? Some people they wanted advice. I say, well, here's some ideas. I was like, well, that sounds cool. How can we create a more, consistent relationship as well? I do the consulting, I do the coaching. Why don't we connect on that? So really, that's just been through that very grassroots thing. And then through going, speaking at podcasts and going to events, I was at a mastermind a month ago, and I think, one or two clients from that, just really being authentic about what it is I want to do and how I'm offering that. And they see what I've done and they feel attracted to that. I think that's my credibility in that. There's a second part to your question first, and I forget what that was now.
See if I remember asking. So it was around how have you leveraged the real estate world? I have to remember my own questions.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be listening, not me. Sherry, do you remember?
I feel like this is a total bloopers moment because there are three coaches who should have excellent listening skills, and none of us remember the second part of the question. See, you can be perfectly imperfect, guys. It's totally okay.
Yes, this is a good example of coaches still need to work on listening. I love the fact that, I don't know about the last question, but it brought up another question. Maybe that's what it was. I'll pretend that's what it was. So the part about credibility is really important. And one of the things that I've seen for some reason, so I didn't have that experience because when I went into engineering, I was there for a couple of years. I didn't have a lot of connections established for me to go back to that. And I actually wanted to move away from that. So that was different. But then I've also seen coaches who've had like lifelong careers, but they don't leverage that. how did you kind of connect the two as you were on these podcasts, as you were speaking about this stuff? How did you manage to do that? And was there a hesitation for you?
Now I remember the second part of the question.
Oh, you remember? Yes, somebody does.
Right?
you were asking how do I combine the coaching with the consulting piece? I think.
Yeah. So see, that's what it was. That.
We were just testing you to make sure you were listening.
Yeah. So the leveraging my prior career, IT into real estate, I think really where the systems and like the logical approach to doing things really makes sense, right? And I think that's where I attract people to. And so we want to talk about the consulting side that I still do. I do the coaching, I do the high performance coaching, but then I add the consulting piece as well. It's like, okay, you want to do a deal? Here are the 5 things you should do, right? This has become more like, here's the recipe for how you want to do it for a deal, for example. And I think the way I have attracted people is I'm a very logical guy, as you know, Faisal. I can see the steps that need to be taken, and I can explain and help people see that path too. I said, well, here are the first 5 things you should do. Once those things are done, then here are the next 5 things after that. That type of thing, right? And that really comes from my IT career, because I used to, implement very complex systems that had 500 steps to get it done. So I was used to thinking through that process. And now I can use that in my real estate career to create systems for operating these deals and closing them. And as I connect that with my clients, like, oh, there's actually a logical progression for how we do these things, right? So as they overcome their limiting beliefs around through the coaching, then they also see, well, here's the path you can take to actually get there. So I think that attracts a lot of people, that it combines those two. So I've been pretty successful in selling kind of a package that includes both. And that's something that I'm really continue to do in that space.
So can I ask a little bit more specificity around that? So like when you're talking with somebody or working with an investor, and you're like, okay, these are the 5 steps. I just gave you the 5 steps, go do them. Next week, we're going to talk about your mindset. Or, do you have them separated out, or are you working with somebody, you're like, whoa, time out. I recognize a limiting belief. Let's tackle that for it. Like, how do you flow between the two of telling people what to do, but then helping them kind of that self-discovery?
Yeah, and I think I want to give Faisal some credit to that through our coaching together. You added some additional more technical sessions in there, or bonus sessions, as you will. And I started like, oh, that's really helpful for me to grow my business, my coaching business, from a technical standpoint. So that helped me. It's like, how can I adopt that to my own business? And I realized I always start with coaching. I always do, 3, 5, 6 sessions of coaching, because I want to make sure they're in the right mindset. Yeah, it naturally gravitates towards real estate. I don't jump from coaching into consulting, because it becomes confusing and you don't get enough time. So I get to learn the client. I learned what the client wants through the first 2 sessions. Said, okay, this is how we're going to design the consulting piece of it. And then we jump into that and do a couple of sessions, and then back to the coaching. So that, I feel, serves the client the best. And I can still, follow the high performance curriculum and everything, and then, add these additional sessions to it. And I had one client, for example, right now, I started with them this summer, and it's like 18 sessions that we kind of committed to, and they wanted to like bounce back and forth, but then they moved, and somebody got sick, and somebody got a new job. I was like, well, you guys don't have time to do real estate right now. Let's continue the high performance. Make sure you get all that stuff sorted out. You have the right mindset, and then when some of your personal stuff calms down a little bit, then we'll jump back into the real estate side of things, right? So I just have I keep a lot of flexibility in that, but I try to keep them each session focused on what that session should be.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the fact that you can leverage coaching, because one of the things in the real estate world is most people won't start and kind of go full force into it, and I have my first deal. It's like a lot of them, they go through this kind of path. They're learning for a while, and then they try a couple of things, works out, something doesn't work out, then they go back, they have some responsibilities come up, and all that requires coaching for them to keep on track. towards their vision. And if they're not clear about the bigger picture, they keep going again from one thing to the next thing to the next thing versus, hey, I'm going to get to that. I know I see the bigger picture and but I need to deal with all this stuff right now. I'm not going to lose sight of the bigger picture. And as a coach, you can be there to help keep them accountable, but also more importantly, to help them keep aligned with the vision, help them deal with the challenges around how they're looking at their life, their relationships, and so many other aspects of their life that they might not have support in. And they might be actually hard on themselves because they're like, well, how come I'm not moving this deal forward? How come all these other people are doing it? But your life is not the same as all these other people. And none of us have that experience. So I think you're serving, like, I love the real estate investor community. And I equate them to be very similar to influencers and coaches, because a lot of them have gone through a full career and they've come to a point they're like, oh, I see a dead stop here. This is not going to take me further. And coaches think in a very similar ways. Is that one of the reasons why they came into this world is that they've had enough of whatever they got. They wanted to create a different life. And like I said, they're naturally motivated, intrinsically motivated to move forward, which is so you are serving such an important part of the world, because a lot of these guys are going to become entrepreneurs who are going to hire people, collaborate with people, so many amazing things. So I love that. So what about, and you mentioned the paid forward event, and I love that because I know that came from your experience. When you look at your coaching path, and you mentioned that you're connecting that with that to some degree, but how do you see yourself like really incorporating that into the paid forward mastermind type of events like that?
The coaching? Yeah, I mean, I think this really comes from this idea that I could not have achieved, my quote unquote success in the real estate had I not had mentors and partners and coaches that helped me, push me, pull me along the way. So that's really where that idea of that paid forward came. And I think it also came from a frustration of going to other real estate events where there is this idea, there is a quote unquote guru on stage that's like, I know everything, just listen to me and you'll be a millionaire next week type thing, right? And they don't become, those sessions, they're not very actionable. You just sit there and you hear some stuff, and it's like, I can't connect with this guy is, or girl is so far ahead of me, I can't connect with it. It's like, oh, this is interesting, but it doesn't relate to me, right? So the frustration around that and going to events, like, oh, it was cool, and I met some people, it wasn't really very actionable. So there's a couple of things to accomplish there. It's like, hey, we're not putting ourselves up on the stage saying that we are the gurus and you should listen to us. No, we just have done a few things and maybe we're a step or two ahead of you. We know where you were or where you are because we were there a few years ago. So we want to just lay out that path in a much more actionable way and create that accountability, that connection, instead of, because the other thing I've noticed at events, everybody runs out in the hallway to network between sessions or in the middle of the session, because that's much more interesting than listening to somebody droning around. So the idea is, well, let's bring that networking into the session, right? Let's focus on networking, creating potential partnerships and connecting, and then also have very actionable training. It's not just, oh, here is 30 minutes around a topic. No, let's spend an hour or 2 hours. How do we actually underwrite a deal? How do we actually raise money successfully? How do we become successful asset managers and everything? Yeah. So basically, actionable training, relationship building, masterminding, and everything. So that's really where that's really that vision we have around that. So we really, there's a community, like Faisal, you're creating your community around the coaching that I'm part of the CMC as well. Building that same community around the real estate and strengthening that is really a reason why we're doing this.
I want to spotlight the mindset that you just kind of shared, because I've experienced this myself internally at times. I see this in other coaches as well, and I think this is really a really important thing to kind of highlight, and that is sometimes it's easy as coaches to fall into this perspective that I'm doing my Facebook lives, and I've got my, well, you don't, but people have their website up, and they're like, I need to be all buttoned up. I need to be perfect. I can't make a mistake. I need to look like I am the, perfect coach so that I will attract people and I'll have credibility. But rather having the approach that, yeah, I'm a screw up sometimes too. I'm imperfect, and being more approachable and real, and not kind of putting ourselves on a pedestal that, there's a fear that if I'm not on a pedestal, nobody's going to trust me. Nobody's going to think I'm respectable. But I think that's a fallacy. And so I love the mindset that you have around this pay it forward. Have you found yourself having those thoughts of like, oh, I need to make sure I look like I got it all together in real estate or as a coach in order to be able to do it? Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, I think there's a natural kind of like, we want to be seen as an expert, and we want to be seen as somebody who is credible and all that. But I try to be, I think we really connect with people if we are vulnerable and open around the challenges and the setbacks and the mistakes that we have made, right? And even in the coaching, I was like, well, let's try to do this. I don't know if it's going to work. Let's experiment with it and see where that takes us, right? So I try to be open around this, and also, I'm very open around my initial mindset around I can do this myself, and but I realized that's not going to get me anywhere, and then how I wasn't really taking the necessary action. So I really feel like people will connect with me when I'm authentic around. It's like, I don't have all the answers. I've only been a coach for a few years. I've seen some people see some results from working with me. But it's really up to you and what you are willing to put into it. I'm going to help and guide you along the way, right? So I'm trying to be as genuine, as open and as I possibly can when I connect with people.
I'm laughing a little bit because I'm imagining a testimonial video of like, yeah, I've helped some people with some stuff. Like, yeah. Like, it's not very good.
I could, or maybe I will, but maybe I couldn't help you.
Okay, I may try to put it. I definitely try to be more confident and convincing and influential when I do my strategy calls.
Okay, I have one strategy. All you need is a black shirt.
That's right.
That's I did not get the memo.
So what I love, so there's a bigger, again, I love the bigger cultural context and themes, and this again comes back to that collaboration theme, is that I think people are sick and tired of seeing experts telling them what to do, especially in an age where they can pretty much find any information. Like, you hear this with teachers in classrooms, like kids are going there and Googling, like, I don't agree with that. This is what it says. Teachers like, what? How did you find out that information? So there's like, we don't have that. And Daniel Pink talked about that when it comes to the sales process in his book, To Sell as Humans, that we don't have that information gap where you go to, for example, a dealership, and the dealership had much more information about this thing than you did. Now the clients have much more information about this thing than you do. Like, if you go to if I go to a doctor's office and they're about to prescribe me a medication, I've already researched everything there is, and I'm already ready with my objections. So if the doctor goes, and I've kind of tortured a few doctors on this stuff, but if the doctor is sitting on his or her pedestal saying, well, I'm a doctor, I know better, I'm like, well, that's great. That's why I'm here. I want to confirm this. So what about this research? What about that research? What about this expert saying this? What about, like, they have to deal with those objections if I'm going to go through this procedure or take this medication. But and this is what we stop to distrust in the expert world, is that, hey, I'm there's only one way to do this. So that comes down to, like, what do people want? I think what people want to see more and more is that they want to see multiple perspectives. Mm-hmm. They want to see multiple perspectives that help them create a coherent path for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I love, like, I want to go in, and that's why even when we talk about coaching mastery community, and that's one of the things that makes it unique, is that there's not one guru or anything sitting there. There's 5 of us. We're trying to work out our own businesses in our own way. We're supporting each other on that path, running the coaching mastery community. But also, more importantly, what Jens, I think Jens mentioned is that like there's no disconnect. Like this, I'm not like when I look at somebody like Tony Robbins is doing the same thing as me, but he's like 100 years ahead of me, maybe 50. But I can't relate to his world as much as I can relate to somebody who's 3, 4, or 5 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
That's a much, and I can, that person can empathize with my situation. That person can see my challenges much more clearly than somebody way ahead who dealt with this 40 years ago, which the world was a completely different world. So I think there's power in collaboration. There's power in people seeing that we can work together. But I think it's even more important from a coach's perspective, modeling this to other people. Because in a sense, we're paying forward also this mindset that, hey, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to make this harder than it is. You can make this much simpler and maybe not easier, but you can make the growth to be much faster. The things that you're going to do much simpler if you start to work together. Initially, it'll be harder. And I think that might be the biggest objection, is that it's hard to work with people. It's not easy to collaborate with people. You have to align on so many things, on your vision, on your values, in the way that you think, and you have to come to common terms. And I think just the bigger world needs that more and more, just by the fact that we're all coming together in the world is not as big as it used to be for most people. So I think coaches or influencers more accurately are on that path to kind of, what are we showing to the next generation, whether it be general people like such as our clients or other coaches and influencers. What are we modeling in this, and like what will be our legacy in the process? So I love this stuff because I think it points to what are we a part of, like the bigger theme around all this stuff. And I don't know, maybe you guys don't care, but
well, Jens, let's just ask you, what do you want your legacy to be? How much of a bigger question can one ask?
Ooh,
wow.
I like that.
It's something as that I really paid much attention to, I thought about for the longest time, right? I think now this is still something that's not super clear in my mind what I want it to be. But if I could help some people just improve their lives, it doesn't even matter if they do a deal, but they make a small improvement in their relationship with their family, if they become more aware of their thoughts and their habitual actions, if they just start shifting their life ever so slightly, that potential is just unlimited. If I could do that to a handful of people throughout my life, I mean, that would just be amazing, right? And just changing people's lives. I never really paid much attention to in the past, but now it's just become so important, right? So changing people's lives, and hopefully, as they change and they hopefully do deals and improve their properties, and then that carries on to their tenants and their investors and everything. I think there's just a exponential impact there that just starts with a small shift in mindset at that one-on-one level, right? So I think that really attracts me right now.
Have you had more than 5 clients?
Yes.
Okay, because you just said, if I could impact only 5 people.
I think a handful.
Or a handful. I don't know. Well,
you revealed a number to us.
I'm just wondering, I mean, the way you said that, it almost sounded like, you doubt that you have even met that already.
I have met that already, yeah. So I think I need to think about what's that next level, right? So maybe that's 500 or 5,000, right? Or just impacting people, that exponential impact on more people over time. Right? And I had a few clients that are like, I want to become a coach. And I was like, cool, awesome, let's do this, right? Because that even then is exciting to see that impact multiplying that way.
Yeah, it's like a multi-level marketing.
I should charge some money for it.
But also there's another piece there. So one is to the next level. Naturally, you will go to the next level because that's just you challenge yourself. But also taking in the fact, and this was one of the most important things for me, is that Like when I think of contribution, I think I've done my part, to be honest. Everything that I like from what I wanted to do when I started out, I actually just like you, I just wanted to make a difference in probably one person's life. I didn't even care about five. I'm like, I just want to see if I can make a difference. And when I was able to do that, then there was this, okay, there was not this insecurity around, am I making a bigger difference or am I making a difference in someone's life? We're all doing that. But really acknowledging that is that you're already doing it and how incredible it will be if you impact more people's lives. Mm-hmm. And that acknowledgement with it, I think, brings this sense of connection with the rest of the world, that we are impacting other people in positive ways. And we can choose to continue to do that. And I think the natural tendency is to want to do that once you impact, because it's one of those positive addictive things that once you do it, you're like, oh, I want more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In your journey, Jens, into coaching, what would you say has been one of your biggest mistakes? And if you could rewind time, you would have done things differently?
Failing to separate what coaching and consulting, giving advice is. I mean, that was one of the biggest things I struggled with early on. It's like, well, I know what the answer is here. Just let me tell you what you should do here, right? But really getting out of that advice giving mode, getting out of that mode of I have the answers. Well, maybe you do, but the client has to realize those answers for themselves. Otherwise, it's not going to stick. It's not going to create that necessity for them to start moving towards it. So I think from a technical, coaching standpoint, I think that would be probably the biggest one, right? When I have to keep reminding myself on every day. From a business standpoint, I didn't really look at coaching as a business early on. Just I'll do, a few clients when I was working my job, right? And then I left my job. It's like, well, I'll take on a few more clients, but not really thinking about what is the longer term goal here? What is the longer term strategy here, right? Am I just doing a client after client and not really with any end goal in mind? That is starting to shift. That's why there's mastermind ideas coming in. That's why some of these other things are coming into play, right? But I think maybe, begin with the end in mind. What do you want this to be a year, 2, 3, 5 years down the road, and start structuring around that? Same thing with the real estate. I didn't really start out knowing where to go. That's becoming much more clear now. But just spending a little bit of time with that up front, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, that's really good. Faisal, do you have any questions before we jump into the last few questions?